only thing we have to fear is
in war.
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton. You can find out more about our program at wallbuilderslive.com and also get a wealth of resources at wallbuilders.com. Looking at things from both a biblical and a historical perspective, everything affecting the culture and what's in the news today. David, you've got several sons serving in the military. We today, I think, do a much better job of honoring those who served than we did in the Vietnam generation, but also even in previous generations. And maybe sometimes it's hard for us today to imagine that when you go serve in uniform that you would not be respected or honored if you didn't go through those generations. But sometimes those folks that are sacrificing for our freedom do not get the respect they deserve.
Well, that certainly has been the case with black soldiers, particularly from the Civil War forward. When you go to Civil War, the Spanish-American War, you go to World War I, World War II, etc., black soldiers did not get the recognition they deserved in the same way that other groups, as you mentioned, Vietnam veterans did not. But it's interesting when you look at the history of black soldiers in the military that it wasn't always that way. I mean, if you go back into the American Revolution, you go back in the War of 1812, you had blacks and whites involved side by side fighting. They were not integrated units. You had these units working together. I mean, as you know, there at the Battle of Lexington, you had blacks and whites fighting side by side, blacks like Prince Estabrook and whites like John Robbins fighting side by side. You get in the War of 1812, the same thing, blacks and whites fighting side by side for their country. It was good stuff. Then you get into the Civil War and you move into segregation. And you say, well, you blacks are over here, and you're not going to fight with the real guys. You do stuff over here. And a lot of that turned around in Lincoln in 1862 with Port Hudson and what happened in that battle. But still, they had segregated units throughout the war. They would put white officers over black units. The same with Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II. And so as you look at World War II, we tend to look at wars with the perspective of what we're used to today, which is a fully integrated military. But we've got a lot of guys who are alive today who fought in World War II, and we honor those guys, and we talk about them regularly on this program and have interviews with them, but we don't think about how different it was for them at the time they were fighting as opposed to today, because when they were fighting, you still had a segregated military. It was not until at the end of the war when Harry Truman, president, unilaterally ordered the desegregation of the U.S. military in World War II. So the experiences from a black perspective in World War II very different from what kids hear today, just looking back, and that's even if they get World War II history, which many don't. So we thought it'd be really...
And you get that depicted really well. Even Hollywood has done a good job on this in that movie Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because that's kind of like brand new for a lot of kids. They have no idea that this went on. Now, and the good news, it's not like that today in the military. I mean, that's not an issue today, but it was for a number. And the good news is it wasn't an issue in the American Revolution that way, except in southern units. If you're from a southern state, it was an issue. If you were from Massachusetts or Connecticut or Rhode Island or those states, it was not an issue. And so it's good that we're getting back to recognizing all men are created equal, but there are times when we have not recognized that. And one of the heroes who actually fought at a time when that was not recognized is a hero we're going to talk to today, and his name is Ivan Houston. And he was part of World War II, part of the 92nd, which was one of the black units there in World War II that's fully segregated. But what those guys did and accomplished is just worthy of mention and honor, and is remarkable what these guys contributed.
The book is called Black Warriors, The Buffalo Soldiers of World War II. The author of that will be with us when we return. Ivan Houston here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Although education has remained an emphasis in America for nearly 200 years, what has changed the most over that period of time is the philosophy of education. For example, while religion finds no place of refuge in our schools today, such was not the case at the time of our founding fathers. In fact, when the Delaware Indian chiefs brought their youth to be trained in America's schools, on June the 12th, 1779, George Washington told them, "You do well to wish to learn our arts and our way of life, and above all, the religion of Jesus Christ. These will make you a greater and happier people than you are. Congress will do everything they can to assist you in this wise intention." According to George Washington, what students learned above all in American education at the time of the Founding Fathers was the religion of Jesus Christ.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. Our guest today is the author of Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II, Ivan Houston, one of our great World War II veterans. It's an honor to have you with us, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for calling me today.
Well, and thank you for doing the book. You know, one of the privileges, great privileges we have here on the show is getting to interview you guys that sacrificed so much for us in the World War II generation and trying to share those stories with folks. So doing this book, I think, is such a big deal because, you know, we're losing some of these great stories, and you bring a unique perspective, powerful perspective. So very much appreciate you doing it, and thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit of the story with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to share it.
Well, you were in college at the time you went into the war. You were going to Berkeley, right?
Yeah, I was at the University of California at Berkeley, 17 years old.
17. All right.
Yes.
So when you went in, and this was the only entirely black infantry division, right, that actually fought in Europe.
Yes, absolutely. We were at the 92nd Infantry Division.
So tell us how different that was. I mean, we get a glimpse of that in the movie Tuskegee Airmen. You know, if you're a young guy today and you don't know most of these stories, and you don't experience that same racism that was as prevalent back then, how different was it for you guys, not only trying to fight to liberate, but also just fighting against the prejudice that you were dealing with at the time?
Well, all of our senior officers were Southerners from southern states because at that time, some 70 years ago, they felt that Southern officers would know how to handle Negro soldiers, as we were called.
Wow.
And so many of the men in the infantry division, some 15,000 strong, were from the Deep South. And there were few of us from the West and the North and the East, and even fewer who had some college. Our junior officers were mostly black, young black guys who had some college or might have been college graduates. So it was, when I entered the Army here in San Pedro, California, when I was called to active duty, I was immediately segregated. Yet I had grown up in an integrated society here in California.
Yeah, so I noticed in the book you said there were you had very few folks from California that you actually served with. Most of them were from the rest of the country.
Oh, yeah, very, very few from California.
And one of the coolest stories I really enjoyed in the book was when you guys went back. And, of course, with our limited time, we can't tell a lot of the stories. But, I mean, first of all, you guys served with distinction. The story of how you freed that town in Italy, incredibly powerful. But you went back to visit that same town years later, in the 70s, I believe it was. Tell us about what happened when you went back.
Well, I went back first time, my wife and I, we went back in 1978 to visit Italy, those sites where we had fought, and other parts of Italy, which is a great place to visit anyway. But, it was wonderful. But even more wonderful was, I guess, when I went back after I wrote the book, because then a person who owned a villa that we were ordered to capture, got in touch with me and invited me and my family to be their guests at the villa.
Oh, wow.
And that was just extraordinary. That was in 2012, almost 70 years after the end of the war. I'm just lucky to be here. If you want to know the truth.
Well, how different is was the reception there with the folks that you guys liberated than it was, even here at home when you came home?
Well, we had absolutely no reception here at home. Our division was often criticized, but in Italy, we are heroes. They just every year in the city of Lucca, a city about 85,000, which was once ruled by the sister of Napoleon, they celebrate every year our liberation of that city on September the 5th. They reenact the Buffalo Soldiers. That was what my division was called. Our entry into the city of Lucca on September the 5th, 1944. And I happen to be back there again on the actual 70th anniversary of the liberation of the city of Lucca, 2014, and was invited to speak to the Lucca City Council and was just greeted as a hero in all of those places where we liberated. It was so different, we never got any acclaim here in our own country.
On the trips back, when you would go back, how vivid are the memories of the wartime when you were there, when you would go back into these cities? Italy
was very torn up during World War II. Destruction almost from one end of that country, which is, as you know, shaped like a boot, to the other end, because fighting took place almost all over Italy. And now, of course, you can't see any remnants except where we fought. The Germans built a line of fortifications called the Gothic Line. And there are still remnants of the Gothic Line visible today because it was built out of solid concrete and steel. So you see those pillboxes. And that's a reminder. And the Italians who helped them build the Gothic Line, because they were conscripted, visit that part of Italy. They have deep memories of that. Those memories are even taught to their children, their school children, about their liberation by us, the Buffalo Soldiers. Just amazing to me.
Our guest today is Ivan Houston. He's the author of Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II, and tells his personal story. In fact, the journal and the documents and the maps and the pictures, everything is really quite fascinating. You got to check it out. Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II. Back in a moment with Ivan Houston here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. At the time of the American Revolution, numerous other nations also had revolutions, yet 200 years later, America is the only of those nations still under its original form of government. Is this just good luck? Not according to Founding Father Benjamin Rush. He declared, "I do not believe that the Constitution was the offspring of inspiration, but I am as perfectly satisfied that it is as much the work of a divine providence as any of the miracles recorded in the Old and New Testament." George Washington agreed. In fact, he declared, "I should be pained to believe that the United States have forgotten that divine interposition which was so often manifested during our revolution, or that they fail to consider the omnipotence of that God who is alone able to protect them. Our founders acknowledged that our national success had come from God."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today, the author of Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II, Ivan Houston is with us today and getting the firsthand account of his story there in fighting and also in going back to visit many years later. So tell us about when you went back and you went into, your wife, I think it was, wanted to go into the art store, to convince you to go into an art store there, and you met one of the guys that had actually helped you.
Yes, that was in 1978. My wife and I visited an art store right on the beach at Via Reggio, a city that was our division headquarters, because she thought we should take something back home. And there we were, that she looked at the art, and then I saw the guy, and I thought he was the owner, an artist, and I told him in my broken Italian that I had been there in 1944-45 during the war, and he looked at me, and he said, "Tu buffalo, you're a buffalo." I said, "Si, yes." And then he started hugging and kissing me.
Wow.
And like the Italian, very emotional. And then he pulled out from his wallet a card that showed that he was one of the partisans that fought with us, carrying ammunition and leading sometimes mules over the mountains. And he was just emotional, took us next door to a bar with his friends, and we spent the afternoon there drinking grappa. It was quite emotional.
Oh, I bet. Man, that's powerful.
And he turned out to be one of the very famous artists. His name was Bruno Tintori, and he is called the artist to the stars in Italy. He's dead now, but his son is carrying out his artwork.
Amazing. Well, it's of course, being liberated, he got it. He understood the value. I mean, he understood the sacrifice that you guys had made, and that's part of why we love having you guys on the program, because there's so many that today that we're just honestly a little bit spoiled. We've lived in freedom for so long, we don't realize the value of it. What would you say to this young generation coming up now about the importance of learning these stories and learning the value of freedom?
I think history is extraordinarily important, because if you don't learn it, you continue to make mistakes, and also we learn much about people during war, because the fact that we still had segregation at that time is important for young people to know, and what happened to us during that time. And the fact that young men, 17, 18, 19 years old, black men, were fighting for our country. And even now, if they visit Italy and go to the military cemetery in Florence, Italy, there are 400 graves of black Buffalo soldiers there, and very few people even know about that.
I can't let you go without asking you, because it's always such an amazing thing to have such an incredibly filled life with a partner like your wife. You guys met in college, and you had to leave her to go fight, and then you came back and got married, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yes, we met in 1944, and then that's the very year that I went overseas in July 44, returned in late 45. We married in 1946. Yes, so that was our history. I'm unfortunate. We were married for 65 years. My wife passed just 3 years ago.
65 years. What a wonderful, wonderful story. And how many children did y'all have?
I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, 2 grandsons, and 3 great-grandchildren.
Incredible. Great legacy. Well, wonderful, wonderful. Mr. Houston, God bless you, man. Thank you so much for doing the book. Thanks for sharing some of the story with us. Best place to recommend folks to go get the book?
They can go to Amazon or to any bookstore. If they don't have it, they'll order it for them.
All right. It's called Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II. We'll have a link on our website today to make it easy for you folks to go check it out. Mr. Houston, thank you for your service so much, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much for calling.
Going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on WallBuilders Live. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution, but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty in Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Very special thanks to Ivan Houston, and I encourage you to get this book as well, folks. It's called Black Warriors, the Buffalo Soldiers of World War II. We'll have a link today on our website at wallbuilderslive.com. Just great stories in there. And David, another cool, have you noticed how many of these World War II vets that we interview that have had marriages of 50 and 60 and 70 years?
Yep. But, you know, that was the sense of duty and the sense of commitment. It was not about them, and anybody who's been through a marriage knows that if you want to be selfish, your marriage is not going to last very long.
Right.
If you're not willing to serve and deny yourself, and if you're not willing to not be right all the time, or at least think you're right all the time, your marriage is not going to last. I mean, it is often, it can be a conflict if you let it get that way, or you can just kind of sit on yourself and say, you know what, I'm here to serve somebody else. And you do that, and you will have a marriage that will last a long time. And, you know, you could tell losing her 3 years ago was, you know, tough on him. A partner 65 years, my gosh, you know, that's significant stuff. But you're right, the long marriages, but that goes back to their character. They have a sense of, I gave my word, I'm going to keep my commitment. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve somebody else. And that's what they did for their country. That's what they do for their families. You're right. I'd never noticed that, but you're right. So many of those guys we've talked to, man, have been married 60 years and more.
We didn't talk about it much in the interview, but Mr. Houston, also extremely successful businessman, ran one of the largest companies in America, big insurance company. And, you know, I wonder, too, how much having those experiences at that young age, you know, leading his fellow soldiers in battle, how much that impacted his business success as well. I wish I'd asked him that, but we've seen that over and over again with these World War II vets as well.
Well, you know, as a young guy coming in the military, you know, it had to be a shock for him coming out of California because, like you said, he grew up in an integrated society, but he had to serve his country in a segregated society.
Yeah.
You know, and how much would a worldview change would that have been? You've been in California all your life. You're fine. All races are fine. Now you get in the military, and not only are you segregated, but they put white officers over you because, as he said, quote, they know how to handle Negroes. You know, Southern white officers because the racism, and they know how to deal with blacks.
Crazy.
I mean, that is crazy. But I love what he was saying. I thought, you know, how ironic it is that in Italy they celebrate American history, that every year they reenact the Buffalo Soldiers and what happened. You know, 70 years later they reenact, and he's a hero there because they reenact what he did. And how many kids in America have ever even heard about the 92nd or heard what these guys did or even heard that there was a segregated military? And by the way, I disagree with Harry Truman on so many things. I agree with him on his very outspoken, bold Christian faith. And I agree with him for having stood up and desegregated the military. I mean, that's going back to original constitutional intent, founding fathers. That's what they designed. That's why we had blacks and whites serving together. And for Truman to do that, his own Democratic Party tried to take him apart. You know, he got in that contentious primary, and then you had the three sides of the Democrat Party running in the primary trying to take him out. And so I appreciate that, but again, it's an aspect of our history we don't understand. And I was thinking recently, I was with some school teachers, and they said, in our in-service training, they tell us, don't teach any military history. Don't teach anything. No Civil War, no American Revolution. So no wonder we don't get anything about World War II. We're trying our best not to teach any military history, but there he is, a hero in other parts of the world. He ought to be a hero in American classrooms.
No doubt about it, man. And they do Black History Month across the country. I don't know how many of them cover this, but they absolutely should. I mean, this is a whole group, not just one person.
That's right.
A whole group of great heroes to lift up.
Yeah, what these guys did across Italy, it's just, it's again so cool what happens when you get guys who are there to serve others and guys who have a commitment to duty. They're going to do what's right not because it's easy, because, my gosh, he got put in double whammy. Not only is he facing the enemy, he's facing his own country by having to fight the discrimination that he had never seen as a young man growing up in California. So, how cool is that to have that kind of character?
I recommend not only the book, also mentioned it earlier, that movie Tuskegee Airmen with Cuba Gooding Jr. Also captures this with those guys that were flying in World War II as well. Folks, thanks for listening today. We hope you've enjoyed it. And also, go on our page at wallbuilderslive.com. Look at that archive section. We've got a lot of great interviews with these World War II vets and other veterans as well. Hope that you enjoy them. Check them out at our website there. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided forever.